For me, when you're buying an e-collar, if you want to buy one at the store, you need to make sure it goes beyond their nose. And the dog just curls around the collar and licks all his stitches out by the time he
Yep.
gets home.
Yep. And they should understand that this is not going to be, an overnight process.
How can people prevent hotspots?
That's a great question, Mike.
Can they prevent hotspots?
They can. They can.
Working in a surgical practice, we would send home the collars all the time
Sure.
for the dogs because they have incisions. You don't want them licking.
No.
And for me, it's there's so many different types of e-collars. You can buy them in the store. You can buy them, wherever. You've got the regular e-collar, the kind of white
Yep.
plastic. There's clear. They've got black ones. They've got the inflatable donut
Yep.
collar. You've got the bite knot collar that looks like a neck brace that they wear, and it's got the strap that goes around their front leg so they can't get it off.
Yep.
For me, when you're buying an e-collar, if you want to buy one at the store, you need to make sure it goes beyond their nose when you put it on. I see so many people come in with an e-collar that's back, at their ears, and the dog can get around it. And yes, your dog's going to hate it. He's going to hate the e-collar. He's got this thing on his head. His head is all of a sudden twice as wide.
Yep.
He's going to run into doorways. He's going to freak out, and you're going to feel sorry for him. And yes, you're going to take it off, and they're going to go to town on licking it, because as much as we love our pets, we can't trust them to not do what comes natural to them. And yes,
Sure.
if depending on where the lesion is, and that determines, at least to me, what collar you need to wear. If it's something that's up here on their shoulder, then an inflatable one will probably be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if we had dogs with knee surgeries that they would put the inflatable on, and the dog just curls around the collar and licks all his stitches out by the time he gets home.
Yeah.
And
They're very resourceful. They're very resourceful.
All they have is time.
Yeah.
All they have is time and a desire to lick. It's
the surgeon's worst nightmare. All the the sutures, or all the work that they've put in, and then it could be done it could be all be all for naught within a few minutes of licking and chewing.
Yeah, and we've had to redo like TPLO surgeries because the dog has gotten in there and just chewed the fool out of his incision, his muscle incision. I mean, it's all apart. The dog. It's not the dog's fault. Dog does what a dog does.
True.
Yeah.
True.
And also in the audience, we've got about 10 more minutes. If anybody has any questions, put them in the chat. If you registered on the page there, the Rockwell Pets page, and it'll pop up and we'll answer them. So we shave the hair, treat the lesion, put them on antibiotics, put the e-collar on. You said depending on the severity, you're looking at maybe 6 to 8 weeks. So it's definitely not an instant. You're not going to shave it. The dog's going to come home with perfect skin. Everything looks great. Yeah.
Owners have to be that, and they should understand that this is not going to be, an overnight process. And sometimes they can heal remarkably well, especially younger pets. But yeah, I think that they should be realistically looking, depending on the severity and extent, several weeks. And generally, it's, the official guideline would be to finish the antibiotics, be a 1 week past resolution of symptoms.
How can people prevent hotspots?
That's a great question, Mike.
Can they prevent hotspots?
They can. They can. They don't always need to go to the vet when it gets bad. They can reduce the frequency of needing to come to see us by taking care of, some very, very doable, frankly, preventative measures. So first, and probably the biggest one that I could say, would be flea and tick preventative. So it could be of the oral variety. You got the Bravecto option. You could do topicals. You could do the Seresto collars. A lot of different options to go here, but that would be the biggest one for me, because I feel as though that's one of the, forgive me, got my cousin calling through. We'll talk to him
if he
later.
wants to ask a question, just put him on.
Yeah, I'll send him through.
He didn't have to call you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, fleas and ticks. We want to get them off, and flea bite hypersensitivity is one of the the big reasons here. Ticks, maybe not so much. It's very. I've seen dogs who have like hundreds of ticks on them. It's awful. Usually in the summer and the springtime. But actually, last month here in New York, we had this blizzard, like late December, and I had a Westie come in with a tick on him, and middle of the winter, it was like 20 degrees or something. It was crazy.
Wow.
And, but really, I would recommend year-round prevention. And even if the risk is less so in the winter months, fleas can be anywhere in the household. And I think the cost relatively of prevention is far below the cost of treating when kind of times get rough.
Sure.
So that's the biggest one that I would recommend as a vet.
And the hassle of treating too. It's not just the cost.
Yeah.
It's the hassle of giving your dog meds, giving your dog an e-collar, dealing with the dog banging in the back of your legs with the e-collar.
And the fact that it's gotten to that point, they're feeling badly from it. So, I'm all for preventative medicine. And I think that's one of the biggest gifts that we can give to them, just because, they're not showering as regularly as we are. They have hair all over their bodies, and we can't be checking. They can't talk to us when they initially get an itch. So,
is that another prevention? Bathing? Is that keeping them groomed, keeping them brushed?
Yeah, exactly. And don't necessarily see your vet to get groomed, because we won't do a great job at it, admittedly. Especially for like the long-haired dogs. I had a Schnauzer the other day that matted fur all over her body, and she did have an infectious wound. Unfortunately, there's a neoplastic or cancerous underlying cause. So she's going to be coming in for surgery. But, it was just kind of a necrotic infected wound that it needs to be surgically repaired. So, a lot of these, pyoderma, if untreated or if there's, a separate cause, there's all sorts of other things that you look for. We didn't really talk about endocrine diseases, like Cushing's, that can kind of show some skin changes, but sometimes you can kind of see stuff that we've been talking about with Cushing's. But yeah, this dog, long story short, she had matted hair everywhere. And I just wonder if, if she had been groomed and gone to somewhere, maybe at least, seasonally, this could have been not necessarily prevented, but picked up sooner in the course of infection.
Right.
Yeah.
What about diet?
Diet is a big one, especially, dogs who have a food allergy, and it may be established earlier on in the course of life, or if an owner is kind of playing around with different brands and different protein sources, and it's kind of all a mix. And then you get the diet history, and then you're like, oh, you have these raw foods, you have rabbit hide or some crazy thing. And I'm like, where do you get this stuff? And you get this boutique variety food, and it's just all over the place. Diet's definitely something that I look at. It may not be the first thing that I think of when I think of hotspots, but definitely if there's a recurrence, and we've treated it successfully, a couple months later it comes back, maybe there's also concurrent GI upset, then definitely I think of those historical issues as potentially being related to diet. I need to find out from the owner what the protein source is. Have you given it anything besides the food? And depending on what the case may be, we may be recommending some different diets.
And that's where your experience comes in, to be able to see the different pieces and be able to put it together to get a complete puzzle.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah. I want to let people know they can go to rockwellpetspro.com and use the promo code SPOT, SPOT, not the name of your dog, but as in hotspot, for $10 off probiotics and natural dog bone broth with turmeric, which sounds delicious. I might have to have some of that later. But dog bone broth, this sounds weird. So we're just about done here. We didn't have any questions tonight, which is very sad. Hopefully next week. Next week will be on Thursday night. And what are we going to talk about next time? Do you know what we're talking about?
I think it might be ringworm. I think that one might be in the pipeline. So
ringworm, which is not a worm. Spoiler alert. Yeah. So
we'll say that for next time. But yeah, biggest misconception there.
That's right. Yeah, it's got to be a worm. So before we wrap up, Dr. Max, is there any message or anything you want that we haven't gotten to yet that you wanted to get out about hotspots, be it prevention or whatever it is that you want to tell us about hotspots?
Yeah, I mean, hotspots, if you have a dog, and if especially if it's a long-haired dog, for example, it's very possible that he or she may have one during his or her life, and but they're treatable, and especially if you kind of recognize the signs early on, and bring him or her to your vet to be seen. It's something that can be fairly easily treated with good prognosis, but definitely trying to find out what could be the cause is going to be always the most difficult part of our job as the detective. But we can kind of help you figure out what the best course of action is. I once had it was from contact dermatitis, and thankfully I had adequate self-control to not it was crazy. I got it like I was out in Maine and with my cousins, and it started on my temples and it just traveled down to my chest and arms. It was ridiculous and scary, and thank God thus far, and hopefully not anytime soon, the only time that I've experienced this. But the skin is a crazy organ. It's our largest one, and it does weird things, and being itchy is just one of the worst. It's one of the worst feelings, and hotspots are a manifestation of that. So prevention is key. Spotting the early hotspot signs is key, and together we can figure a way to keep your pet happy.
Very cool. But I want to thank rockwellpetspro.com. Once again, you go there, use the code SPOT, and you get $10 off probiotics and natural bone broth, natural dog bone broth with turmeric. Otherwise, I think we're done. I think we've beaten hotspots to death for the last hour. It's been great. We'll be back next Thursday with ringworm. Thank you, Dr. Max. Hope you have a great week, and hope everybody feels better up there.
Amen. Hey, you too, brother. You too.
Yeah, I'm getting over it. So we're all good down here. So otherwise, we'll see you guys next week. Have a great week.